The ProAct Know-How.
Hi, welcome to this Cyprus 2019 workshop. Welcome along. We've done a couple of runs already on this, and what we want to do is try and answer specific questions. So if you use the chat box to ask your questions, okay. So I want to do a quick recap, and then we'll pile straight into the questions that people come up with as we go along. The Cyprus tax return is completely online. It's completely online now, and it's due by the 30th of December. There's some interesting extra information that needs to be put into it now, and you have to connect up things like bank accounts, social insurance numbers, S1 numbers. So this is what it's looking for, and looking for you to have that access and that information added into the tax return. If you put something in wrong into the tax return and you save it, you can always temporarily save the return, and if you try and submit it, it will then bring you up the errors where you've made the errors, and you have to keep working through. Don't forget that with the EU with euro, the euro and cents denomination is a comma. It's not a full stop like in the UK. Bizarrely, parts of the return use the comma, parts use a full stop. Sometimes you need to put the cents in, and sometimes you don't, and that will cause you some confusion as you get used to it. So let's get cracking. So welcome to this Cyprus 2019 workshop. On the first page of the return, then you do need to add in your social insurance number if you're working in Cyprus. Now, if you're not working in Cyprus, you don't need to put that in, but it is something that's required of you if you've got that social insurance number. If you don't are not self-employed in Cyprus, or you're not working and don't have a social insurance number, you don't need to put that in. That would apply to retired expats. Another question that we get is on section 4C, where people, you're asked to put in your rented property details. This is very, very complicated. The taxation of property rentals in Cyprus is a big business. There's a lot of property developers, a lot of property owners. Rental income can even be subject to VAT. So it's quite a complex area, and capital gains tax is involved on the property sales, and all that information is captured in there. This will not correspond to the information you necessarily have if you've got an overseas rental property. So bear in mind, if you've got a Cyprus property that you're renting and you're putting the information in, there's quite a lot of detail that you need that you should be able to get from combination of your title deeds and your own tax details. But it could even be from your contract, because you need to know the square meters and the size of your plot. Very, very complicated. If you've got overseas property, then our recommendation is that you don't put the rental income there, that you put it into other income at a later section, and just record it as an investment income or self-employed income from overseas. Another area that we get questions in is the automated information that comes into the system. And this is largely to do with the new health tax, which is a big issue. So, and that's even more complicated, because are you entitled to it or not? First of all, who has to pay the health tax? So when it was first introduced, everybody had to pay it. And as it's been clarified over the last 18 months, there's been more and more clarity. Some people may have paid some health tax already. Some will have to pay it from the return. With Cyprus, there is a self-assessment process So I haven't got any sound on at all here. So somebody else has got the sound on. My able assistant is supposed to be muting people in the background, so I'll mute them. Maybe just confirm that there's no more music for anybody. Health tax, health tax, rental taxes, special defence taxes, dividend taxes, and bank interest taxes are paid by self-assessment, along with an estimate of your income tax or your self-employed earnings in July and December each year. There's a window of maybe a month to pay that tax on self-assessment. And if you miss that window, you don't have another opportunity to pay that tax until you create a debt at the tax office. And the only way to create a debt by the tax office now is by doing your online return. So while we've got this situation in Cyprus where if your income is below 19,500, you don't have to do a return. Only people with more than 19,500 income need to do the return. If your income is below that and you've got some health tax or some dividend tax or some rental tax that you need to pay on your worldwide income, then you will need to do a return anyway. And because that's the only way you can repay, create the debt to enable the payment of any taxes that are due. If you're an expat and you've been here less than 20 years, then generally you can pay 0% tax on dividends and bank interest, but you need an exemption form and you need that certificate to validate your return so you don't have to pay the tax. If you're exempt from the health tax, you need a certificate for your exemption. So if you're an S1 holder, if you're an EU S1 holder, that will have a reference number which you need to put into this return, and also your certificate will have a reference number which you need to put into the return. Your social insurance contributions should automatically sync with the tax return. Unfortunately, with COVID, and unfortunately just the way it is with the last minute returns, some people's contributions to social and healthcare taxes that are being automatically fed into the tax returns are not correct, not allowing for reductions or for variations or for starting or stopping, which is an added complication. And the way to approach it is a glitch. There's no way of making a note on the return to nominate that glitch, is to put the figures in and then on the assessment make the appeal to adjust the payment to pay more or less tax as the need may be. But you do need to get those exemptions. One of the things that we've clarified in the last month since these returns have come out is that, and this is something we can't actually find in writing anywhere specifically, but what we now understand, not from Cyprus, but from around the EU, is that if you've got a permanent residency in Cyprus, then you are exempt from the Cyprus health taxes. So you get free medical care. There's no rhyme or reason to this. So everybody who becomes a Cyprus tax resident is liable to the health tax. That's a fact, okay? You potentially got an exemption if you have an S1 or if you're a permanent resident. So if you've been a tax resident in Cyprus for more than 5 years, then you're a permanent resident, you would become exempt from the health tax in Cyprus. But that's because of a reciprocal arrangement within the EU. So that would then work for you. So if you've got that registered permanent residence in the system, it will come up and it will show you as needing zero permanent, zero health tax on your tax return. However, more recent permanent residencies, anybody that's done it this year, might not be updated on the system. And so the system is just behind. And even though you're permanent residency, it will still ask you to pay the health tax, create the debt, and sort the problem out later. Don't leave the return to be submitted late and get overwhelmed with the issues is the way to approach it, I believe. It will be very time consuming to sort out the issue later, but it's an automatic €100 fine if your return is in late. If you want help from Proact, either as a retained client service or tax return service, we can do that for you as well. That's your decision to make. So a permanent residence with an MEU3, once it is actually registered, should be, as an EU resident, should be exempt from health tax charges. Now, if you're a working expat, if you're self-employed working, you're entitled to healthcare treatment straight away, registration, and you pay healthcare premiums with your social insurance. So again, that should come through onto the system, but it's not. There can be errors in the amount that comes through. So we just need to work with that. We can't amend it during the period before the cut-off date, so that revision, that appeal will have to be done afterwards. If you're an employee in Cyprus, you have to pay at least 2 years worth of social insurance and tax returns before you become eligible for healthcare, but you would still have to pay the healthcare tax. So employees have to be in Cyprus for more than 2 years before they get the free healthcare tax. And then the third issue that we've got is that if you are in Cyprus, even as an EU citizen, you don't have an S1, you're not self-employed, and you're not employed, until you're a permanent resident, you don't have an entitlement to register for healthcare treatment unless you follow a special status. So under reciprocal social insurance agreements, you might have some health benefits or a medical condition that would allow you to get that treatment sooner. So those exemption certificates have to be gained from your home country to do that. If you haven't already got that, or even if you have got it this year, any of those certificates around that, there's a high degree of probability of error on the system. So it'll either show up or it won't show up. But this is all about exchange of information and perfecting a system that's been developed in real time with people still required to do their tax returns. So get the return done. Some of the information won't be correct. You need to keep that record. You've got an obligation to keep it up for 6 or 7 years. At the end of that time, sometimes you should get an assessment, and with that assessment, you can make the appeal for that. Okay. When you're doing the return at the end, you get two or three calculation pages to identify any income taxes due, any special defence taxes due, and any health taxes due. So for an expat, they can get exemptions for and have their exemption registered certificate for the special defence tax on rental, dividend, and bank interest. So you should be able to pay 0% tax, even if you're earning 100,000 in dividends. As an expat, you still pay 0 tax. We've got the medical, we've just discussed it, lots of errors on that. So if everything's right and you're a permanent resident or got an S1, you should be exempt, but only if the records are up to date. And then with the, but you do need the certificates for that, and you do need your registration number on your S1 and your exemption certificate to put into the return to validate your exemption. So any queries with that, you can speak with one of our client advisors who will guide you on where to find those on the forms. If you're a client, we've got that information available. And then finally, there's a self-assessment, which generates the income. Now this is, again, it's not automatic. but generally will come through. But you need to add in any deductions that you want to make. So if you're paying medical or life insurance on the Cyprus only policy, you can get an income tax relief on that. If you have got some property rentals in Cyprus or sales, you can get some allowances there as well. So that can amend against return. Your tax for health and special defence is all allowable against your income, so you don't pay tax on taxed income, and that works out. So if your income is over 19,500, you've got a 20% tax liability, and it rises marginally. If you want to pay 5% on an overseas pension, you can do that, and you can pay 20% on other income. So if you've got employment, self-employment in Cyprus, and you're earning 30,000, you can pay income tax on that, but only 5% on any pension you're getting. So you've got that option. Also, you can consider how you would best do that. So if your total income is below 19.5, you may as well have your overseas pension as income and pay zero tax rather than 5%. But the health tax could still apply. Not forgetting that for UK expats, if you've got a public service pension, you've got the option of it being taxed at source in the UK. This will be coming into effect for everybody automatically from 2024. If you've elected to have it taxed still in Cyprus under the old rules, then you continue to put it on the return. But once you're having your UK public service pension, that's government, military, health service, local government, once you're having that pension taxed in the UK at source, while you may get tax and be paying a lot of tax in the UK, you don't need to put that on the Cyprus return at all. So it's not, you don't have to declare it as part of your worldwide income, and therefore de facto it's not subject to health tax as well as income tax. This can work very well for expats so if you've got 20,000 public service pension and 10,000 state pension, having one taxed in the UK and one taxed in Cyprus gives you just the 10,000 in Cyprus that will be subject to no income tax. It varies from people to people, and you need to consider what is the best way to arrange your income in Cyprus. Once you've completed the return, you then get a code, and that code is the reference you need to put on the bank to then make any payment. So once you've created a tax debt on your tax return, you can then put that code into your bank payment and reconcile that and make that payment from the bank or using the local JCC merchant payment system. That's the only way you can pay the tax that is overdue from 2019, by doing the tax return now. And if you don't pay it like that, then you wait for the assessment. And if the assessment may have additional taxes, but once the assessment comes out, that gives you another month to pay any tax debt then. So those are your windows of opportunity. So that's my general summary on the issues that we've had from clients grappling with the tax return over the last month. The other issues that we've delved into around the medical insurance is just to bear in mind that we covered that earlier, is that your permanent resident is exempt from the health tax, but they also qualify for the health service here. anybody that's registered as resident in Cyprus before the end of December 2020, their S1 will continue to provide them with health cover in Cyprus beyond that. So that there is going to be ongoing cover for retired expats in Cyprus. And as long as you're working, you will have that entitlement to healthcare here. Once you're permanent residents, you've got that entitlement to healthcare, but it comes with a potential tax liability. It's unclear yet whether after Brexit, the UK will still allow permanent residents to be exempt, and it's unclear whether there'll be a change in the rules on that for this blanket exemption on permanent residents paying health tax, whether that will be sustained or whether it's something to do with a change in fees. So it might change next year. It might even change on this return in the assessments. We'll wait and see. So I actually haven't got any more questions that have come up this morning. And so I've covered all the issues that I wanted. There was additional time because we allowed for the questions to come from you. We've covered those now. So I just want to say that at Proact, we've got a retainer service which offers a continued professional tax and advisory service to expats living and working abroad. If you want to join us on that, you can contact us at proactpartnership.com and we can explain more about that to you to answer your questions as we go along and get more of these deep dive workshops to help you complete the tax, residency, medical, wills and property transactions while you're living or working abroad. We've also got advisory service if you want to consider trust and property administration work that we can help you on and updating your will. Okay, so get more information on that at proactpartnership.com. So thanks very much for listening. I hope you found this useful and join us again next time. We've got another workshop next week on Brexit and how that's going to impact expats living and working abroad. We'll do a bit more detail on the ongoing medical cover for expats that are registered. Join us then, and meanwhile, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
The Proact Know-How, brought to you by Proact.